Good morning on this Wednesday, April 15th, 2021. April 15th is usually tax day, but it's been moved this year because of the pandemic to May 15th, I believe. So we have a great show, let it be known. But before we get started, let's bring on our president and CEO, Dr. Ben Chavis. Good morning, Dr. Chavis.
Good morning, Stacy. And on behalf of the National Newspaper Publishers Association, the Black Press of America, we welcome all of our viewers, all of our listeners. And there's a lot happening in Black America and throughout the Pan-African diaspora. We're ready for the headlines.
Yeah, and today we're going to talk about Dr. Chavis this morning. The Washington County Attorney announced it would file second-degree manslaughter charges against Kimberly A. Potter, the white former police officer in Brooklyn Center, Minnesota, who fatally shot 20-year-old Dante Wright. This morning, our news portion of the program tackles a 2019 study of nearly 100 million traffic stops nationwide, which concluded that Black drivers are 20% more likely to get pulled over than white drivers. With the latest unnerving shooting of young Dante Wright by a police officer, some African Americans are even refusing to drive. Being stopped by police is a stressful experience that can go bad real quickly. On its website today, the ACLU describes what the law requires and offers strategies for handling police encounters. Be clear, the burden of de-escalation does not fall on private citizens. It falls on police officers. However, you obviously cannot assume officers will behave in a way that protects your safety or that will respect your rights even after you assert them. So, Dr. Chavis, this is some really and valuable information, particularly for the Black community.
Absolutely. You know, driving while Black, walking while Black, breathing while Black has become a hazard because of white supremacy, because of systemic racism in America. We face these challenges. And I think what the ACLU has done is great. What we need to do is to make sure that all of our publishers, all of our members of the Black press, that we continue to focus on this. And particularly for our young millennials and Generation Z who are beginning to drive. You know, all parents now are worried whether or not they're going to see their children come back once they start driving because of this racial profiling, this systemic racism. It's a serious problem. And I think what happened in Minnesota, what is continuing to happen in Minnesota, is a tip of a very large iceberg.
Yeah, absolutely. And so here's some points. Understand this carefully. You have the right to remain silent. That's a very important right. We often overlook that, but you do have that right. You don't have to answer any questions about where you're going, where you're traveling from, what you are doing, or where you live. If you wish to exercise your right to remain silent, say it out loud. In some states, you may be required to provide your name if asked to identify yourself, and an officer may arrest you for refusing to do so. But you do not have to consent to a search of your vehicle, a search of yourself or your belongings. But police are allowed to pat you down, your clothing, if they suspect you are carrying a weapon. Note that refusing consent may not stop the officer from carrying out the search against your will, but making a timely objection before or during the search can help preserve your rights in any later legal proceeding. So, Dr. Chavis, again, some more valuable information from the ACLU, and they are particularly targeting African Americans with this information.
Right. But again, African Americans are not the problem. The problem are police officers that racially profile. They wouldn't stop you in the first place if they didn't think you were doing something wrong. And what is doing something wrong is driving a car, being Black, particularly if it's a nice car, you know, or a new car. You know, they don't think young African Americans, male or female, have the right to drive in certain neighborhoods or to drive in certain make or shape of cars. This is racism. So we need to put the heat and the spotlight on where the problem is. The problem is not African Americans not knowing their rights. The problem is police officers overextending their responsibilities, their privileges as a police officer. They're sworn to uphold the law to protect the public. But right now, many of them, not all, but many of them, brutalize the public, particularly brutalize and victimize African Americans solely because of race, solely because of some cultural or racial disgust that they have in their prejudice. To me, it's just not a matter of reform. I think all of policing has to be redone. Sometimes I don't think you can reform racism. I think it's got to be eliminated. I don't think you can just, put a Band-Aid on this. These fatal interactions between Black Americans and police is going to continue until we do something fundamentally to change this whole concept of policing in America.
And understand this too. Again, this is so vital. During a traffic stop, you have the right to make a local phone call, and the police cannot listen to that call if you are telling them that you are calling your lawyer. They cannot listen to that phone call. And
right. I would tell them I have my lawyer on the phone because
there you go.
They may try to stop you from calling the lawyer. When you pull over, I just think that we have to really think through this because right now, African Americans are being targeted. That's what racial profiling does. Why? It has nothing to do with air freshener. It has nothing to do with your signal light is working. It is racial profiling. It is racism, and we need to call it out for what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we saw with the Army sergeant, he was only pulling it to a well-lit place, which is what we should do, pull into a well-lit place.
Yes.
And they didn't want him to do that. So you're 100% right, Dr. Chavis. This is profiling, and it's gotten worse.
Absolutely, it's gotten deadly.
It's gotten deadly.
And the officer, the lieutenant, is lucky to be alive.
Without question. And unfortunately, Dante Wright and others, so many others, Tamir Rice, none of them can say the same thing. And that's the sad state of America. And so we hope that we can, here at the Black Press, can just offer information that in some ways can help keep some of us safe.
Oh, absolutely. And can you give out that website where people can see what the ACLU is posting?
Absolutely. It's www.aclu.org. Great information there. A study that shows, and we didn't need a study, right, Dr. Chavis? We know that African Americans are by and large pulled over much more than others.
Absolutely. But, studies are important. Statistics are important. But again, it's not new news for Black America. We've known this for years, decades. The question now is, what is all of America going to do about it? I'm glad that we have in Congress now the George Floyd Policing and Justice Act that's moving through Congress. We need to do everything that we can to put pressure. And of course, changing the leadership of some of these police departments is vital. Don't wait for them to resign. They need to be fired, right on the spot.
Yeah, great. Dr. Chavis, this morning, as we segue, and we will continue, obviously, to follow all of the injustices that are going on. Certainly in Minnesota, we have two newspapers there that are following it, the Spokesman Recorder and Insight News, and of course, blackpressusa.com. We're going to continue to follow that. And on a better side of Minnesota, Dr. Chavis, there was Prince. 5 years ago, the icon passed away at the age of 57.
One of the best in the world. Not only Minnesota, one of the best in the world.
Oh, absolutely. He was a genius among geniuses. And I always said this, Dr. Chavis. I looked at the Jacksons and Michael Jackson, and I always used to say, you know what? You got to give the Jacksons a lot of they got to give them their props because they were able to share a stage with Michael Jackson all those years, and they never missed a beat. So I say the same thing about our next guest. He shared the stage for several years with Prince. He was in that iconic band, The Revolution. He was on stage with the Rolling Stones when Prince opened for the Rolling Stones before he became the great icon that we know him. Before we get to him, let's take a look at this video.
Oh,
We
that's
know
great.
we know him as Brown Mark, the one and only from the Revolution. Good morning to Brown Mark. What's
Hey,
up,
good
man?
morning. Good morning. How's everybody doing?
Doing fine, my man. Listen, brother, we're so honored to have you with us this morning.
Oh man, it's an honor being here. Definitely.
Man, you were jamming on that little clip we just showed, but you know, tell us a little bit. I'm going to talk about your book too, because for folks who may not know, just a few months ago, Brown Mark released a great new book. But tell us about jamming with Prince. We know we all want to hear that.
Hey, that little clip you just heard, that's like that's what was birthed from that. He used to always give me a lot of latitude on the bottom end, never controlled what I played, how I played. He kind of let me do my own thing. And back in the Revolution, we developed this really low pulsing bottom end that just worked every single night. And, he loved it, and it kind of carved our whole sound. And then Wendy and Lisa came in with this whole different thing. I mean, it was a unique group of people that he had put together. So yeah, we definitely were in the purple University of Funk. That's for sure.
and talk about that group, because you mentioned Wendy and Lisa. There was Bobby Z, Dr. Fink. You guys, how did that come together?
Well, I came in. Lisa, Bobby, and Matt were already in the band. I took Andre's place. I don't know what really happened between he and Prince, but Andre had left, and then so I came in as the replacement, and then Dez left about a year and a half later, and then that's when Wendy came in. So, but the nice thing about the group up to the point to Wendy, it was handpicked. I mean, we were selected for specific qualities that we had. For instance, Bobby Z has always been able to hold down the pocket, which is very important for a bass player because it gives me the latitude to do what I need to do on the bottom end. Dr. Fink, just a beast on the keyboards. And so that's why they call him the doctor. He's surgical on those solos. And so, and then Lisa and Wendy grew up together from the time they were little kids. And so they had this very different approach to chord structure and voicing. And Prince loved it, and so he ate it up. And so we all kind of came in with our own little specialties, and that's what kind of formed the Revolution.
Yeah, and so you guys, I remember you taking the stage. This wasn't necessarily a highlight for the Revolution and for Prince, but you took the stage. It was really a daring thing to do at that time and place, opening up for the Rolling Stones. It was at a big stadium. The Rolling Stones fans didn't take kindly to you guys. No,
they didn't. I heard in an interview recently, Matt had said, I didn't know who the Rolling Stones were. Well, that was a misstatement on his behalf, because it was one of my biggest concerns with Prince. I told him when I first joined, he said, we're going to be opening for the Stones. I was like, do you the Stones? I said, man, are they going to like us? And, and he was like, hey, it could be a big shot. And I was like, okay. But I was always skeptical because, we're talking bikers and rock and roll. I mean, it's a whole different thing than what we were doing. So
yeah,
Russian roulette. I tell a really good story about that, in my book, because it was one of the highlights of my career when I came in contact with Prince. I mean, it's what really set the tone for how I was going to lead my own life. So,
yeah. And you played on such iconic hits, 1999, Purple Rain. We all saw the movie. Talk about that experience, because you went from that situation with the Rolling Stones, but you went into a huge album. 1999, it still resonates today because it was such ahead of its time.
Yeah, yeah. There's a funny backstory to 1999. I remember he called me out to the studio, and you know, my part, he come the girls start. I was supposed to take that next line. No, Des takes the next line. I was supposed to take the third line, and so I went in the studio and I sang, and he sat back, and he just listened, and he goes, "Whoa, that kind of sounds like the way I sing it." and so that's why I never got my lead part, because he figured it'd be easier for him to just carry that whole lead, which made more sense to me. I think he was just trying to get my voice on it, but it made more sense to me that he would sing it. But man, that was a great song. I remember it from the beginning, from its creation.
Yeah, Dr. Chavis, I want you to jump into this conversation.
Well, thank you. I have a science background, so I'm just listening to Brown Mark, how these geniuses, and you're one of the geniuses also,
Oh, wow,
Brown Mark, was able to synthesize. A lot of times, talent bounces off of other talent, but you brothers and sisters had a way how you fused into something that, man, transcended the whole world. Look, man, it came a point in time when the Rolling Stones learned from you. You know what I'm saying? You transcended not only funk, not only R&B, not only hip hop. I mean, you took it to a whole nother level, not only in America, but all over the world. And that's why your gifts and your talents are not only remembered, but are yearned for today.
Yeah,
appreciate that. Really appreciate that.
yeah.
And you know what? And I have to say this. Prince was my big brother, and like a big brother, it wasn't always a bed of roses. I mean, brothers fight, and so we did that. But it was purposeful.
But at the end of the day, you all came out better.
Absolutely, and that's the way I look at the big picture. What was the end result? The end result was what we did. It's history now. My kids, when they found out even who I was, because I kept it a secret until they were like 18, 19. They were in high school, and some kids brought an album, Purple Rain album, into school, and they walked up to him. They said, that looks just like you. My youngest son, Miguel, they said, that looks just like you. And he looked, he goes, that's my dad. And he had no clue I was in a band. And then so he ran home, and immediately he was like, I didn't know you were in a band. And and so that funny story there, but yeah.
But why'd you keep it from him? Was that for their protection?
That is a rough lifestyle, and I just didn't want them in that lifestyle. I wanted them to blaze a different trail, and if they wanted to get into it, then they would, because they excellent songwriters, excellent musicians. But you see the music industry today, you see it.
Yeah,
I wanted them to have something a little more for longevity for when they get older and stuff. For me, I came in, I'm a pioneer, so I know the hustle. For the younger ones today, man, it's a rough road out there.
Yeah, we are talking with the great Brown Mark from Prince's Revolution Band. You wrote in your book something I thought was extremely interesting, and it was about as Prince got bigger, as you guys got bigger, you started seeing the different crowds, more of a white crowd with the black crowds up in the upper regions of the stadium. Yeah. Talk about that, how that affected you and how it affected Prince.
It affected us a lot because, being a black man, you notice that kind of stuff right there. We had a lot of people that really didn't get it. A lot of people around us, because they didn't grow up black. They didn't grow up in this skin, so they wouldn't see it the same way. But I remember me and Prince having several conversations about, why is it, what happened after 1999? No, after Little Red Corvette, it was like we had a whole different audience that we were playing to. And so, that immediately after that, I noticed he addressed that issue because we had some pretty hardcore promoters, came out of Detroit and some other places. And he definitely attacked the issue because it was definitely a problem right off the bat. You know, all the good tickets were being sold out in the suburbs.
Yeah.
And, yeah, that was just a fact of life back then.
Yeah, I remember back in 1984, the Jackson's Victory Tour. It was a similar situation where Michael had spoken out about not enough black audience, not enough black people up front, toward the front. And, and the Jacksons did complain about the ticket prices and things of that nature. So it's it's always great to hear when these artists like Prince or Michael Jackson stand up and say, you know what, I want to see my people here, you know, have them give an opportunity to be up front. Now, Brown Mark, you know, also here's the thing. I've always said this too, and don't want to go too much to Michael, but I always said with Thriller, Michael, and he said it himself, he kept chasing Thriller, right? Yeah. You guys put out 1999, which was at that time seen like you couldn't top that. Well, you topped it with Purple Rain, and I know you wasn't there when he did Sign of the Times, but that is arguably the best album ever made.
That and the funny thing is that's probably, I would say that's 70% the Revolution. I mean, we were working on that before I quit. You know, there's a rumor out there too that, you know, that we got fired. No, that's not how it went. And that's why my book was so important. There's so many mistruths out there that I just got tired of it. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna write this book. The Revolution's disbanding started with me and started with, you know, a lot of other internal issues that we had. But we were always working on albums like at least a year and a half, 2 years prior. Like Purple Rain, we were already on that in 1980, at the end of 81, 82. We were already working on it. So we were way ahead of the game. Always Prince was like that. I mean, talk about a genius. I mean, he was always way ahead of the game. And that's where Sign of the Times came from. Cause, I mean, when I quit, about 6 months later, he asked me back. He wanted it to be me, Dr. Fink, Sheila E. on drums, Levi on guitar, and with Miko. That was going to be the NPG, the new NPG. Yeah. And I didn't want to do it. I was like, I'm good.
Yeah, well, Miko and Sheila did do the movie, the concert film, Sign of the Times. So I hear where you're coming from. Dr. Chavis, I'm gonna throw it back to you.
Yeah. Yes, I want to, I know we have a few minutes left, but I'm going to close out on the book. My Brown, your book, tell us why you wrote the book and tell our viewers how they can get a copy of the book, because you said something so important. That it's important for African Americans and other people of color for us to write our own stories, to write our own narrative. Yeah. We represent the Black press, and that's what we do every day, every week, now with social media, every hour. Yeah. We put that truth out there, but we do it from a perspective that's genuine, that's authentic, and that's rooted in our history and our legacy.
Absolutely. I wrote this book 10 years ago. A lot of people don't realize that 10 years ago, because it was therapeutic for me. I grew up a fatherless boy. I grew up in the streets. I grew up having to figure out things on my own. A lot of drama, a lot of trauma came with that, a lot. And so I had to figure out a way to release it. You can't be angry all the time. And there had to be another way. And I remember I just started writing notes. And then, 10 years later, the book I met a couple people that really helped me just bring it together. Yes. And before Prince died, before he passed away, he knew about the book. And so he says, well, are you going to let me read it? And I was like, of course I'm going to let you read it. You'll be the first one to read it because I already knew what was going to happen.
So how can people get a copy of the book?
Are you telling our secrets? But
how can people get the book?
Amazon, the Minnesota, any of the small mom pop stores in Minnesota, I know they sell them. Barnes and Nobles. The audio book is out on all the audio streaming platforms, all the digital platforms. It's everywhere. So it's definitely out there.
Well, we wish
I always put people to Amazon.
So look, we're having our national convention in June. It's a virtual. Man, that clip that we played at the beginning of the show, Stacy, we gotta make sure that we replay that so that people around the country can hear this brother get off on the guitar, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And a programming note, this is not the only time we're going to have Brown Mark. We're going to have a special next Monday afternoon on the NMPA's Fire broadcast starring Brown Mark. I want to say Mark Brown, but you know what? That's not Prince speak. Man, we are thrilled to have you this morning. Before we let you go, this is just a couple of quick notes. Our executive administrator, Claudette Perry, is watching. She says Prince invited other historical musical geniuses on stage occasionally. In the last Prince show, she saw Maceo play with Prince. He had that knack, right, Brown Mark, of bringing on. We know he wrote hits for people like Sinead O'Connor, Sheena Easton, even Shaka Khan.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, he was good for that. As he got older, he wanted to, as we get older, we learn more and more and more. Our brains are like sponges, especially, me and him we cut from the same cloth when it comes to creativity. And so the brain is always absorbing, and you always want to look for better and better ways to expand that. And so that's what he did. That was like one of his quests in life especially I remember when Miles Davis came along, that was phenomenal for me. And many others, Sting, he brought, we even had Ron Wood on stage and Bruce Springsteen. I mean, we've had some of the best on stage with us. And it was just, I mean, I can't say no more than it was the greatest thing in the world for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
The
greatest artist of all time, in my estimation, Prince. We certainly miss him. We can only imagine how much you miss him. We appreciate you taking time with the Black Press, Brown Mark. This has been an amazing morning, and we look forward to your appearance, as we said, on the Black Press's Fire broadcast at 3 p.m. Eastern Time Monday. It should be a really, really great time again with Brown Mark. Dr. Chavis, I'll give you again your closing thoughts.
Again, we want to express our appreciation and gratitude and salute to Brown Mark for your continuing contribution to the uplift of our people in America and throughout the world. May God bless you, and we're all going to keep that spirit that Prince had alive.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And tomorrow we're going to talk to Maya Russell, who serves as the financial education leader within Wells Fargo's financial health philanthropy team. She'll join us tomorrow. Also, a further programming note: with so much concern remaining about the coronavirus pandemic, let it be known we'll have a very special guest next Wednesday, April 21st. Dr. Rochelle Walensky, the director of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, will join us. Tune in. She's going to have some really great information for us. And you know what? It's International Guitar Month. International Guitar Month in April inspires the world to strum and pick their way through chords to sweet serenity. Whether you play guitar or your talent is in listening, the month is wide open to ways to celebrate the guitar. Guitars bring joy, whether we play them or listen to the music they produce. In 1987, the Guitar and Accessories Marketing Association and the National Association of Music Merchants founded International Guitar Day to promote retail guitar sales and stores around the world. So learn from folks like Brown Mark, or just listen to the music of Brown Mark and enjoy the guitar. Let it be known, art is about building a new foundation, not just laying something on top of what's already there. That's Prince. We will see you tomorrow.